Okay. I forget where the hell I left off at. Mm, excuse me. I'm just going to start at a place. I'm just going to go with it. How about that? For Austria, I reached agreement through the party leadership in Vienna. I appointed Captain Broscha as national leader Austria. Broscha was an Austrian officer and an old RKF Munich member. At the rally of the Austrian National Socialists on 2 and 3 August 1924, I took the salute of the stormtroops of the Vaterlandische Schutzbund, Fatherland Protection League, and later laid a wreath at the memorial to the Archduke Rainier Regiment in the presence of columns of Völkisch stormtroops, thereby paying tribute to the heroism of our Austrian ally in the Great War. I also made a speech during the rally. Over the next few weeks, I informed the Interior Minister Stutzel what I wanted. It was, of course, obvious to me that a BVP minister would not favor our efforts, but I only hoped at least to establish a friendly neutrality with the Bavarian government. The Front had gained ground in Bavaria and nationally. I laid the foundations for the organization in Augsburg, Hof, Amberg, and Nuremberg. In Munich, Dr. Pittinger instituted the so-called memorial celebrations. The memorial was erected to commemorate the territories which the enemy had stolen from us. The leader of the Reichswehr troops pledged that he would do everything possible to retrieve them. Unfortunately, His Majesty the King decided to give the celebration a royal inauguration. At his side was Dr. Ritter von Kahr, Captain retired. I wonder if that's related to the other car, or probably the same guy. To take the salute after the dedication, the pilgrims who filed past the royal residence did not make an impressive picture. There was hardly a frontline man amongst them, and for uniforms, it was clear that many of these militarists had spent the war at desks at the rear areas. Nevertheless, the presence of Kahr turned it into a victory celebration, for the outcome at the Felden Hall provoking a very wild mood in Völkisch circles. It was also on this occasion that the rift between King Ruprecht and General Ludendorff, which began in the war and had widened in November 1923, became public knowledge. I knew that there were forces at hand trying to patch things up, but these were the same men who had had a hand in planning the memorial festival. Accordingly, I requested an audience in the Lichtenberg Palace, which was granted on 1 August 1924. I established from friends that it was not the king's desire to involve officers in this personal matter between the two former German army leaders, and that the cause of the rift was not disloyalty. That evening, at a meeting of the Deutsch Völkisch Officers League, there was a clash of opinions on the affair. One section of officers placed the blame on the king for the public revelation of the difference. I spoke out, intending to correct the false conclusions attributing it to the king. The Völkischer Courier reported this on its edition 157 of 8 August 1924. I had hoped to smooth the way for reconciliation, but the attempt was brusquely dismissed by the king's circle. The matter then took its course, which I could do nothing to stop. German Day in Weimar on 1617 August 1924 was a milestone in the development of the Front. The unification of the Völkisch movement under Ludendorff's chairmanship was announced in the historic Theater Hall. I was involved in founding the central group of the Front with the central German leaders, particularly young Graf von Hildorf and his chief of staff, Freiherr von Eberstein, who threw themselves wholeheartedly into the task and were always true helpers and friends. Their personal sacrifice for the organization and the National Socialist movement was rewarded later with a campaign against them because they were against it because they were of the aristocracy, something for which there was not the least justification. So, yeah, once again, I have a feeling this wasn't printed in Germany. I have a feeling because I mean there's a couple swipes that Ernst Rohm has already made. You know, he definitely gave swipes at Hitler. He's given swipes at the National Socialist movement. So there's a little bit of back and forth here, but anyway, just a little bit of editorialization, I believe. Anywho, the Front Bond had some excellent commanders. On 17 August, there occurred an uplifting development. During the morning, the brigades formed up at the airfield where General Ludendorff made a speech and the flags were waved. In the afternoon, the columns marched to the theater forecourt for a rally in which Dr. Dinter, leader of the Thuringian NSDAP, swore in the men to General Ludendorff, after which they took both the salute at the march past. A few days later, I was fortunate enough to accompany the general on a trip to East Prussia together with Captain von Heidebreck. There I got to know the so individual and proud German Volk guarding our eastern frontiers. We traveled to Königsberg via Insterburg, Tilsit, Budwillen, and Wilkowischen. Everywhere, the general was given a warm and joyful reception, and the militia honored its supreme leader. At Königsberg, after a speech by Ludendorff, I addressed an enthusiastic assembly as a Bavarian, expressing my respect and feelings of community spirit for the East Prussia's lands and people. I appointed Captain Amann, leader of the local Gau. On the anniversary of the Battle of Tannenberg, I made the following public appeal. The brigades and comrades who occupy the ground of the National Socialist worldview, who have sworn themselves unconditionally to Hitler, Ludendorff, and Graf, have combined into the Front Bond. The Front Bond with Front Jugend made up the Front Kriegerbund, which, uniting the German front veterans in its ranks, constitutes the Front Ring. Germans of all social classes, German soldiers and German youth entered the ranks of the Front Ring. East Prussia, anniversary of the Battle of Tannenberg, by order, Rohm, Captain, retired. The Front Bond and Front Ring had been baptized. I was confident that from now on a new front would emerge in the struggle for Germany's rebirth. Meanwhile, in Berlin, on 29 August 1924, a deluded and tricked Reich subjected himself to the Dawes Plan. In justified anger, shame, and disgust, General Ludendorff and his Volkisch friends left the upper chamber on the Königsplatz, which met on the same day. Another black day had come to Germany, a black day especially for the great national party, the Social Democrats, over half of whom had raised a hand in favor of enslaving the fatherland. In the National Socialist and Volkisch political movements, a slow recovery was being felt despite internal difficulties and resistance. Although the Reich Leadership Committee, Ludendorff, Graf, Strasser, had failed to make progress in many parts of the Reich, especially in Bavaria, resistance had not ceased, and elected Volkisch deputies had even joined forces with dissimilar elements to form a parliamentary bloc to oppose the National Socialist/Volkisch movement. Pahner had gone his own way. He was probably the outstanding brain on Pranger Strasse. Give me one moment, folks. His gift of uniting divergent elements had now failed him. The publicly declared opposition to his anti-Nazi Volkisch bloc became ever stronger and eventually took material shape as the Großdeutsche Volksgemeinschaft under Hermann Esser and Julius Streicher. Oh, really? Hitler kept quiet about all this. He even let the adversaries of the Reich Leadership Committee have their say. On 20 August, the band NSDAP held a separate meeting in Weimar. This did not go well. Ludendorff rightly left it in disgust. There were a number of conflicting trends, especially when I took the chair, while Rosenberg, chief of the Völkischer Beobachter, and his closest associates opposed a merger with the Völkisch Freiheitspartei for a unified National Socialist movement. Strasser, Streicher, and Esser spoke out, insisting on the absolute leadership of Adolf Hitler. A few months later, the GVG, now under Dinter's leadership, also spoke out against the Reich Leadership Committee. Whether this occurred without the knowledge and approval of Hitler, I cannot say, but I doubt that people of the caliber of Dinter, Streicher, and Esser would have done it without authority. In many Völkisch circles, or those sympathetic to them, it had become the custom to make one of these three the scapegoat for anything which displeased the National Socialist movement. This was not right. Hermann Esser is not only by upbringing and education a gifted man and a rising star from whom much is expected in the future, he is above all a fiery and persuasive orator. He has proven his loyalty and devotion to the Führer. Hitler, in the most difficult situations, many may have gained the impression now and again that he allowed himself too much free rein during the passion of oration. But I would not find blame in him for that. In politics, one cannot always play the flute. Personally, I had the pleasure to work with him often and found him to be a reliable comrade. But this did not prevent me from bringing him to task if he did something of which I disapproved. The way in which Julius Streicher fights his battles will not draw everybody's applause. His efficiency and success cannot and will not be defined by friend or foe, and particularly not by the Jews. Just the one time I say that, don't worry. Amongst the other, many brave and honorable Völkisch fighters who joined the GVG was a regimental comrade of Hitler in the field, and a steadfast comrade and party manager, Max Amann. All the same, I did not like the GVG. All his brotherly political infighting strengthened my resolve to keep the front bond outside these disputes about where we were heading. The front bond would stand above the Völkisch party groupings and became a component of the overall Völkisch movement. This would naturally be a thorn in the side of conventional politicians. Attempts by the party strategists to maintain some kind of influence remained in evidence and were so successful in a number of localities, thus setting up of the front bond in Baden, which began with tiresome conferences in Heidelberg and Offenburg, was crushed by this kind of opposition. On 13 September, I accompanied the general to Eberfeld and Münster, where the political and military organization of the Gau was to be centered. Captain Pfeiffer von Salomon would install stormtroopers there. Delegations had even hurried over from the occupied territories. I had the provisional regulations from the front bond drawn up. They were set out in great detail and based on strict military guidelines. The structure had at its head the commanding officer. Below him followed the high command, the group commands, the state or provincial commands, and the section commands. The sectional commander had beneath him the stormtroop commander, district commanders, and local commanders. Depending on size, the local commands were divided into groups, platoons, companies, battalions, and so forth. I'm not going to read all that. I'm sorry. I'm just getting real lazy with this. Oh my gosh. Okay. In October 1924, Captain Brosch resigned for business reasons. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry, y'all. You know what? This is just annoying. You know what? I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna say, you know what? We're good. This is, it's been good, but my goodness, I feel a little bit tired of reading it. So you know what I am going to do? I'm going to read another book. I'm going to find it, though. Okay. All right, folks. Whew. I'm sorry. If you couldn't tell by the end of this, I have kind of. There were a couple days where I was just like, okay, this is good stuff, and I really tried to get into it, but now I'm just, for some reason, I just feel absolutely drained. So you know what? I think I'm gonna give. I already privated the other video, so I'm just going to give you a brief review. I'm going to go ahead and recall it this, but I think that there's a lot of interesting information about this book. Honestly, I thought this was going to be more just about Ernst Rohm revealing himself to be more, to be the the progenitor of homo fascism, but it didn't really end that way. And there is a lot of detail in this, and I think if you really did read a book like this, then you could gain a lot of insight. And if you really did a lot of research, you can kind of get a better picture, a clearer picture, and not just the Nazis took over in Bazing. Life has never been that easy. If you if you just read a little bit, if you've been following along for the past little bit here from what I've read, there is a lot of detail. So I think overall it's a pretty good book. It does get repetitive, and it's just kind of, it has drained the hell out of me, to be honest with you. I'm gonna give a couple more days break here. I don't know. I'm gonna try to get out a bit more, and I don't know. I just I don't feel particularly right, but basically, I'm just gonna end the book there. I hate to do it that way and cut it early, but I hope y'all enjoyed it. For what I read 3/4 of it, or at least 7/8 of it. It got to be too much. I'm sorry. It's just okay. I get it. Basically, you know what? Let's just skip to the end here. That way, I'm just gonna cut to the end. We're gonna read the afterword, and then we're gonna call it good. How about that? We'll make it a deal. Okay. Okay, here we go. I have thrown open the book of my life and my experiences to my friends who will understand, and Philistines, sorry, no offense to Filipinos, who will only who will only find fault with it. The bourgeoisie will condemn it as unenlightened. But that does not worry me. Many books have been written, but few with more ruthless candor. Perhaps much in it will not to be the liking of my political friends, but my soldierly senses compel me to abandon partisan thinking and emotions, and not depreciate the values of my enemies any more than I would lash out at the errors of my friends. I am a friend of free expression and make no bones about it. I have written candidly, passionately, and defiantly, straight from the heart. Yet it has been far from my intention to wound or defame anybody. The voice of the soldier is rough and harsh, but we soldiers speak the same language and understand each other. The soldier's Emperor Napoleon said once during his exile, "Soldiers cannot hate me even when they stand in my enemy's lines." The wife of a soldier in my company, a man who was far from my political standpoint, told me, "In my husband's heart, his captain comes first of all, then his mother, and finally myself." A communist at a meeting of a soldiers' council in which they were agitating against officers leapt up and shouted, "I don't know if it is true what you say about your own officers, but I know it is untrue of my captain." Thus the soldier stands above all distinctions of class, social position, and politics. Comradeship, caste, and blood may slumber, but never be torn from the heart or eradicated. Today, all Germany has darkened. Heroic Germany sleeps. My words must be the rallying cry. I do not call upon those busy, slithering wheelers and dealers who have made their gold may have made gold their god. Ooh, sorry, folks. But to those who struggle in the battle for freedom, within and with which we shall gain the realms of heaven. Germany have learnt to hate, but manly hate has been replaced by effeminate griping. He who cannot hate cannot love. The flame of freedom glows in the fire of fanatical hate and passionate love. Passivity, objectivity, rationality is impersonal pseudo-wisdom. In the face of warnings from those who know best, Cole, Freiherr von Hunefeld, and the Irish comrade Fitzmaurice flew the great ocean from east to west to overcome the elements. Calm and order is the battle cry of the pensioner. But ultimately, one cannot run a state to suit the needs just of pensioners. The right thing to do if somebody wants to box your ears, wrote the Münchener Zeitung with reference to French abuses in the occupied territories, is to accept it with composure. Translated into real German, that is simply a lack of backbone. To hell with the composure and calm reasoning with the half-hearted and the cowards. The rash and reckless fought for 4.5 years at the front, while the level-headed stayed at home. Coarse elements fought in Upper Silesia to keep it in the right. The cultured jailed them for doing so. Irresponsible dreamers have called upon the people to resist slavery and oppression for the last 8 years. New Germany's irresponsible politicians have run Germany's economy into the ground over the last 8 years in the grip of prudence and mature thinking. Our Volk and fatherland are being led slowly but surely to total ruin. Since time immemorial, Germany was never suited to diplomacy or politics. Its greatness in history was always won by the sword. I most respectfully request that the diplomats be instructed not to lose what the soldier has won for us with blood. Blücher said to King Friedrich Wilhelm III after the Battle of Waterloo, "Only the soldier can lead Volk and fatherland to honor and freedom out of distress and shame." And with that, folks, we are going to end the book. Like I say, folks, this is an excellent book. I think it it is hard to read. I think overall, if I really want to be anal retentive, there's some little mistakes here and there, but I mean, you're translating this from the original German. In general, this is basically, I think, what was left of his memoirs. It sounds like this was a book printed, when Ernst Rohm was having beef and everything like that. It doesn't talk about him going to South America, which is what he did. So there's bits left out of it, but I think overall, I think it is a good book if you really want to understand that it wasn't just, as I said before, I'm just repeating myself, but basically it wasn't just Nazis took over Germany after Social Democrats, everything was intertwined. dare I say it, is that everything was connected. And one thing influenced another. And, we can see that, the National Socialists weren't, necessarily the HNIC, and there was the Front-Bahn, there was the Kampfbund, there was, Stahlhelm, there were, all these different groups, the Reichsflagge, all these different little groups that came together. And it's not as clear cut, and you'll learn that in life, is that things aren't as clear cut as you think they are. Anyway, folks, I think I'm going to end it there. I think I'll upload one other thing. Apparently, my StreamYard time is kind of coming slowly, because I only get 20 hours a month, I guess. So I'm up to about 13 or 14 because I've read this daggum book. So I'll take a short little break. Then I'll upload something else. And then I think I'll take a little break, I think until May 6th. And that'll be good because that's after school technically ends. So then I'll pick out something else to read. I'll see how I feel about reading State and Revolution. That's a shorter book. That should be maybe 5 or 6 parts, hopefully. We'll see how it goes. Anywho, I hope y'all enjoyed. And, I think I'll link it in a pinned comment where you can get the book if you feel the need to. So, see you later. Bye-bye.